Good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Jacob Wycoff, joined by our executive weather producer, Terry Eliasen. Terry, we're actually poring over models as we speak.
Yes, we are.
There's a lot that goes into a snowfall forecast. We not only have to forecast what's happening at the ground, the temperatures of the clouds, the amount of moisture in the clouds, but also that entire column of air. And this forecast, as we look towards Thursday, really puts us to work as far as, forecasting all of that.
It's gonna be tricky. It's not just like the last couple of minor snow events we had were basically just how much snow we're going to get. How much is there? This time we have to look multiple different layers, as you said, and we'll kind of try to illustrate that coming up in a little bit here. But because it's not just what happens at the ground in these situations. If you get a layer, say 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 feet up that has warmer temperatures, you got to take that into account. So.
We do have a next weather alert in effect for our Thursday system. It is going to be a daytime storm, really starting kind of just after the morning commute and then wrapping up before the evening commute. So if there is sort of a silver lining in this, it's that it may be sort of minor impacts because of the timing of this. Brief snow. We're talking a few hours worth of snow before some of us transition over to maybe some sleet, freezing rain, over to rain. And then the greatest impacts are going to be in the higher elevations, the places that are prone to hold on to that cold a little bit more. That's likely where we will see the higher totals and perhaps the greater ice amounts.
I think the interesting call here, like my son, of course, was asking me last night, oh, is this going to be a day off from school? And I think it's a tough call because the timing, obviously the kids will go to school, nothing will be happening yet. Do you call off school in anticipation? Because when they get out of school at 2 or 3 o'clock, most folks will probably have gotten a couple inches of snow. It'll probably be sleeting at that point. Not the best conditions. It's not a major storm, but still, it'll definitely be messy. So it's going to be a tough call for superintendents. Trying to figure out, is it enough for me to call off school before it even starts snowing or sleeting? I don't know. I think we're going to need a little more data. Hopefully by tomorrow we can really refine, or even tonight, really refine the exact snow amounts, the timelines. But either way, I think it's going to be a tough call for schools.
To make that decision before the first snowflake flies is always a tough call.
Definitely.
So here's what we know. We know that this is going to be a quick moving storm, but it's not a big storm. What we're still working out are the snow amounts, the ice amounts, and because of the snow amounts and ice amounts, really the factor of that is how quickly the changeover occurs.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the whole ball of wax here, is how quickly does the warmer air come in? If it comes in quicker, obviously it means less snow. If it lags, it could mean a few more inches of snow. Again, either way, it's not like the stakes are 1 inch versus a foot. Like, that's not the case. We're talking about the difference of an inch or two more or less of snow. But nonetheless, definitely with relative impacts here on the area. The storm system is still very, very far away. You can see the entire United States is fairly quiet. The storm that we're watching for Thursday is just coming ashore now in California, well over 2,000 miles away. So I think here's the reason why I feel like tonight and into tomorrow we'll have a little bit better feel, because we start getting a lot more data as this thing comes ashore. A lot of our computer models will they'll just have more information to work with. So over the next 12, 24 hours, we're going to be pelted with high resolution data that will help us to figure this thing out.
Absolutely. And not only are we tracking one storm that's off the coast, we're tracking another one that's going to be moving. Let's talk about our Thursday system first. It's going to move onshore as it's happening right now, move through the upper Midwest, and eventually in our area. This is going to be Thursday morning that Terry's paused this at. Notice it starts out as snow. Some of us may transition over to some ice and then eventually some rain before we start to clear out. Again, that would be Thursday evening that we start to clear out, but somewhat short-lived because we have another system on its tail. This is our higher resolution futurecast, showing some of that snow starting 9, 10 in the morning. Some bands start to move through. We have a solid couple hours worth of snowfall before then this is kind of out of here. And to Terry's point, this is where the superintendents, this is where you have to make that decision. If the snow starts at 10 a.m. and the worst of the storm is maybe 1, 2, you have a couple inches on the ground, you're dismissing those high school students or kids on the bus. Do you want them to drive through a couple inches of snow?
Yeah, and now this particular model is interesting because it doesn't have a whole lot of mixed precipitation and rain to fall. It's basically a burst of snow for everybody for, say, 3-4 hours. And then as you can see, by the afternoon, it's becoming scattered. And by the time the warmer air gets here in this model and the sleet and rain arrives, it's pretty much already ending. So this is just one model. Many others are, again, more data coming in today. I think we'll see, we'll have a much better idea of when this transition on this map occurs. I think either way, most of the folks south of Plymouth on the Cape and Islands, there's not really much. There could be a coating of ice and snow down there, but it's probably mostly rain. But everywhere else, say Mass Pike either side, way up into New Hampshire, it's probably going to be, like we said, 2, 3, 4 hours of snow, and then how quickly does the warmer air move in? Now let's dig in.
Sure.
Talk a little bit of atmospheric science here and talk about the difference between the different precipitation types.
Yeah, so one thing we'll talk about over the coming days is what's the difference between sleet and freezing rain. So we have cold air that's in the clouds. That is where our snowflakes come from. If there is a large enough warm sector of air above us and then a shallow cold layer right at the ground, that snow falls through, that warm air melts, turns into rain, and then at the surface, it sticks to anything.
Yep.
So it turns into freezing rain. So it's basically liquid rain that freezes on roads, sidewalks, on railings, anything, it freezes.
Yeah. That's probably the most hazardous type of winter precipitation.
Right.
Because it looks and feels like it's raining out, but again, freezing on contact, so it's hard. A lot of times that's where you get black ice, the roadways, sidewalks, everything. I don't think freezing rain is going to be the predominant precipitation type here. I think it's mostly snow and sleet. And for sleet, it's essentially you have a thicker layer of cold air at the bottom layer of the atmosphere. So there's enough time for the rain to then refreeze into those little pellets.
Yep.
And so you'll recognize the sound of the little pellets hitting off the siding, off the roads, off the deck. And you'll get, it's hard to accumulate, but you'll get a little accumulation of those little pellet balls.
They don't accumulate as readily as snow does.
But
snow fluffs up a
but
little
it also doesn't make everything freeze on contact with
Correct.
freezing rain. So
here's a good thing to remember. Sleet pings, freezing rain clings. So it clings to everything. So that's my little
I like that.
teaser for you.
so now we're getting real technical. I threw this in here, Jacob.
I love it.
This is a sounding of the atmosphere on one particular weather model around midday on Thursday. And so that you'll see where I circled. There's a dashed line that goes horizontally through that circle. That's essentially the freezing line. And so you can see on the right side of that line, there's a little bit of that. So the red line is the temperature line. And you can see that there's a portion of that red line that goes to the right side of the freezing line, and that means it's warmer than freezing. So from that layer, which is basically about 5,000 to about 8,000 feet up in the atmosphere, temperatures are going to be above freezing midday Thursday. So colder all the way down, above freezing in that little layer, and then the temperatures get colder again for the rest of the way down. That's basically what we just showed on that prior map, but this is kind of a little fancy atmospheric look.
Absolutely. I never did I think we would show a SQT chart.
I mean,
on
we're
this
getting deep.
Yeah,
We're
love
getting
this discussion.
deep.
Where was that for, by the way?
So that was for Boston, just west of Boston.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it.
This depicts what we just showed, but in a much easier way, in a much, basically 5,000 to about 7,000, 8,000 feet. There's that warm layer, and then cooling into sleet pellets below.
Yep, and so this is what we mentioned when snowfall forecasting, likely probably the toughest type of forecasting that we do, because there is a lot of math involved where you're figuring out the ratios of liquid water to snowfall. You're forecasting the ground temperature, the entire column of atmosphere temperature, the temperature of the clouds, because that determines the type of snowflakes that you eventually get. So this is the fun of things. And honestly, when kids ask me, like, what's your favorite type of forecasting, I like the challenge of snowfall forecasting. Hopefully we get it mostly right, but this is where the challenge lies.
Yeah.
You rather have the challenges. I mean, we can go to San Diego if we want to forecast 70 degrees and sunny every single day,
There are times
right?
where that might be favorable.
Right, exactly.
No, this is a good challenge, absolutely. And I do think that, again, this is just that sounding we showed was one run of one model. Yeah. And we got a whole bunch of weather models to look at here. So where we come in is interpreting that data.
Right.
And then trying to figure out what's good, what's bad, and just experience tells you that, in these certain situations, X, Y, and Z tend to occur.
Sometimes that warm air invades the upper atmosphere a little quicker,
right.
Or the cold air at the surface is really hard to scour out.
Right, and that's a good point. So the big question is, how entrenched is the cold air to start? if you have a big area of high pressure over northern New England, which we don't this time, typically it can be hard to get that cold air to scour out of the valleys and everything.
Right.
The cold air source is relatively weak. That's why we feel like that nose of warm air is probably going to move in here pretty quickly on Thursday. Hence no big snow totals and changing it over to sleet. Very complicated stuff.
Yeah.
But as we get through the day today, we'll be breaking it down even further. But this is just a map showing where we feel like the colder temperatures may hang on a little longer, and therefore maybe a little bit longer duration of sleet or snow in this area.
And when you say colder temperatures, that doesn't mean colder temperatures the entire column of air, right? We're talking the warm nose of air kind of invades that upper atmosphere, melts the snowflakes, we get the melting, then we get that refreezing, and that's why we would expect that longer duration of ice in really kind of 495 north and west of there.
Yeah, and these areas probably never really go to rain. It'll probably be a snow to sleet situation, where south of there it could be certainly over to rain. So we're working on a snowfall map. I think we'll probably have one out. Well, I know we'll have one out at 5 o'clock tonight. We usually try to go about 48 hours in advance. But just to give you an idea of what we're thinking, and this is for, I think, Boston, Worcester, most of Metro West area. Just wanted to throw this out so people, know what to expect. This is not going to be a foot of snow.
Right.
It's very unlikely to be even close to a half foot of snow in, eastern Mass. Probably more likely to be a couple inches for most.
Now, one thing that we kind of talk about, Worcester, Boston, there are different geographical dynamics at play when we forecast those areas. Are those same geographical areas or considerations in play with this type of storm, you think?
I feel like there's less orographical play here because of that warm nose. So like typically you got an average snowstorm, and those northern Worcester County, the Berkshires, Monadnock region, because of their elevation, they tend to be colder. This warm nose is coming in above everybody.
Right.
So the warm air is coming in 5,000 to 8,000 feet up. So when it comes, and you're going to switch over to sleet.
And also the proximity to the ocean sometimes plays effect, right? You get the ocean effect, just warmth right there, and cuts down on some Boston totals. That's not the case.
This is not the case. This is not a nor'easter. This is all about when the warmer air comes in aloft, not at the surface. And a lot of these storms tend to be fairly widespread, similar snowfall totals. It's not always a big difference between, say, Fitchburg and Boston, because that warm air is coming in sort of, everywhere at the same time.
Yep. So this forecast that you just saw there, this forecast, kind of indicative of what a lot of us could see. Yeah. As soon as you start getting south of Route 44 towards the southeastern coastline, that's where we would see maybe a little bit of difference from this. But I think we can all say like maybe 1 to 3 inches kind of widespread. There might be a little bit of fine tuning from there, but this is kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah, I think so. And then, of course, there's storm number 2.
Storm number 2, yeah. So this is a map of sort of the atmospheric spin, a measure of the spin of the atmosphere and atmospheric energy. Storm 1 making its way onshore as we speak, but behind that, storm number 2 looks to actually be a little bit more powerful in this instance as it transverses across the United States. What we would look to see for a big, powerful storm is for this to take more of a U-shape, sort of a trough to set up. This is more elongated, so doesn't have that same classical setup that we would look for a storm system. Still, though, watching it closely, because this could lead to some snow totals. This would be Saturday night into Sunday. So we're mainly dry, completely dry on Saturday. As we get into the overnight hours, that's when we would start to see that snow start to fall. This is going to stick around. Kind of a similar feel of like snow to sleet to rain, but this would, I would say, perhaps lead to some higher totals just based on the amount of moisture involved.
I think at this point, right, there's a potential for a little higher, like you said, a little higher precipitation in general, so maybe a few inches added onto the snow, a little more sleet. Again, similar setup, similar situation. This is not a classic storm that's going underneath us that we said yesterday. It's not like a benchmark blizzard nor'easter type storm. It's going to be another one of these mixed events, which is kind of like the story of February, I think, at least for the first 1 or 2 weeks. But anyways, timing, it does look to be mostly overnight. If you have plans on Saturday and you plan on being home by 9 or 10 o'clock, I think you're good. Sunday morning, you get to clean up. And plenty of time if you got a Super Bowl party. This storm will be long gone by the afternoon. So I don't know if that's good news for most, bad news for most, but it's another relatively quick mover. This one may be closer to like 8-10 hours long, as opposed to Thursdays being maybe 5 or 6 hours long. But that's not going to be the end either. Our 7-day doesn't go out to next week, but it looks like the pattern is going to continue.
Around Valentine's Day, we have another chance of a system that we're watching. Again, Terry says we don't go out. That would be like 9-10 days out or so. I think the couple takeaways, we have some big ups and downs, and we also have a fairly active pattern, which is what we're talking about for the month of February, that we may not have the sustained cold that we had in December and January, and we may not have just the pure snow chances that we had maybe in the past, but we will have multiple chances that we're going to be talking about in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, going to be a busy month. And so Valentine's Day is what day next week? Do you know offhand?
It would be Friday.
Friday. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I was trying to just in anticipation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that next.
No, I already planned. I've got flowers are already ordered and chocolate.
Wow.
I mean, if you're twisting my arm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that
I might be joking, but
no, I understand. That storm next week. Again, we're going way out. Looks more like midweek, so maybe we could get that out of here by Valentine's Day. But
sure.
It just feels like this time of year. Again, Super Bowl Sunday, Valentine's Day. There always are storms around the area.
Yeah.
It's always some kind of complication, and we kind of get a get out of jail free card because we're so busy.
Yeah.
I mean,
sweetheart. I mean, the gift is just my presence.
Are you calling me sweetheart?
No, that's what I'd say to my wife.
Gotcha.
Goodness, the comments are going to be going wild now, boy.
All right, anyhow.
All right, well, if we want to, okay, we'll go ahead and go now. They're rolling the music.
Yes.
We did 16 minutes here. We appreciate you tuning in to this Tuesday Weather Talk. I'm meteorologist Jacob Wycoff, Terry Eliasen. Be safe, everyone.